I'm opening up the meeting according to sunshine laws and giving the floor to Sarah so she can make some comments.
Okay. My apologies. I not only I sent you guys, I posted and sent the wrong agenda out. And there are items that need to be added to it. So I thought we would just start the agenda or start the meeting with me just telling you the items that I know are missing, and then we can put a call for other items that should be added to the agenda. And in the future going forward, it takes IT almost a week to post it to the website. So I think going forward, if we have agenda items on the Thursday before our meeting, that should be soon enough to get them typed up and into the IT so they can post it appropriately. So what I have on this meeting agenda, the first item is roll call. The second item is reorganization of committee, which we'll do after I'm done here. The secretary's report should be approved in November minutes, not September minutes. And then everything else that I have on there is as I intended to post it. So I know that, Bob, you have some other items that you wanted to add to the agenda.
Bob, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, you have the list, right?
Oh, hang on a second.
Sorry, I was muted. Can I, Sarah, just say something about agendas?
Hold on a second. I got to hold on one second. Hold on one second. Okay.
While you're looking that up, Sarah, I think Councilman Vasanella. Oh, there he is. He was waiting.
I just saw him. That's why I was saying hold him, and I wanted to pull him.
Gotcha. I think he's in now.
He is now. Yes. Okay. So, but the problem is, I don't know how this is. Some of the items you have on your list, Bob, are already on the agenda. It's just they're in a different order. So I didn't really know what you intended to add to the agenda for discussion tonight. So why don't you just tell me which things you want added and where?
All right. Bear with me a minute here.
If you could do it going down the agenda, that would be most helpful for adding them in. The agenda that I sent out. Hi, Jim. Good to see you.
None of my stuff, all my stuff is under new business, so there's nothing that's that overlaps.
Okay, then that we'll just touch when we get to that part of the agenda. We'll talk about them.
All right.
Can I just say something, Sarah?
You have Franklin Times on there. We have Franklin Times on the agenda already, so that will be discussed at the time that we do the Franklin Times.
Great.
Right.
So Chris or Sarah, could I just say something about the agenda and how it's produced?
Sure.
So whether it's this committee or many other committees that I'm on, there's an agenda that's sent out, and sometimes it has to be sent to the town to be posted online. Some of them don't have to be. But regardless of what the agenda says and when it's posted, they are always draft agendas. There's nothing written in stone. It's just a draft. Because from the time that it is drafted to the time of the meeting, new stuff frequently comes up. So
that's my understanding.
Stuff can always be added and rearranged. It should never be a problem when it comes to when we get the minutes. You know, the sooner everybody gets something to the chair or Sarah to get their information for the agenda, the sooner the better, so it can be posted on there. But even if it's posted, sent, it can still be sent to whoever's in charge of the agenda so that they know they want to add it to the agenda as an addendum when we get to the meeting. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. That's my understanding too.
Okay. James, for reorganization, I'd like you can take the control of the meeting. Is he still here? Mr. Vasanelli?
You're on mute, Jim.
I'm just confused as to where we are, as,
We did roll call, Ellen, and now the item that should be written in there is reorganization of committee.
so Arnie's
Two.
participation isn't necessarily part of the minutes, or is that,
No, that was just because we needed to fix the agenda.
okay,
So,
thank you.
Can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Oh, okay, because I have a little audio problem on my computer. I just wanted to make sure. I'm sorry. So you're going to do the reorganization of the meeting of the
Yes. We
group?
need to elect a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary.
Okay. Now I don't know because it's my first time with your group doing that. I think Arnie, you help me out. You're on a lot of committees. The vice chair, unless they're running for chair, you will conduct it, or the chair. I mean, I know
think,
how we do it. I know how we do it in certain council and for certain government formats. But
I'm going to go by what we did on open space this year. And I think probably that's what Chris is basing this on. When we had our
Okay.
open space reorg a week or so ago, the chair asked at that time the mayor to run the meeting just for the nominations and
Okay.
elections for the chair. Once the chair was elected, then the chair ran the meeting after that as far
Okay.
as nominations and elections
No-
for the vice chair and the secretary.
Not a problem. And you're an advisory group. Well, no, actually, you're not. You're actually a group, but I mean, you're similar to in function. That sounds fine to me. If everybody is unanimously okay with it, I'd be happy to do it. I just don't want to do anything that may ruffle any feathers.
It's good.
I don't think he'll ruffle any feathers.
Okay. And Arnie, thank you. I knew you'd have something about a precedent relevant to civilian committee. No, I know Robert's rules and all that stuff, of course, but again, just be respectful, mindful to individual groups have their nuances. Anyway, okay, so it's formally open, and then Sarah or whoever's handing it off to me formally at this point.
Yes.
Okay, so I will ask, as way of Robert's rules, my understanding, if there are any nominations from the floor or from the group and you want to do the position of chair first, correct?
Correct.
Okay, then for chair, and I'll also mention, as many may know, my understanding is Robert's rules, anybody is welcome to nominate themselves or, of course, another person.
I would like to nominate Chris for chair.
I would like to
Okay.
second that nomination.
Arnie, you're nominating Chris, correct?
Correct, yes.
And the nomination is seconded. I don't know technically if it has to be, but it's good. It's formally second. Is there any other nominations for anybody else?
Or any
anybody nominating
self-nominations.
themselves? Sorry?
Or any self-nominations.
Or that's right. Anybody also is welcome to nominate themselves. Okay. Going once, going twice. I'll close nominations, and not having the capability to do a secret ballot and seeing only one person nominated, I will ask to do it by acclamation, starting with everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody against the nomination? Anybody abstaining from the nomination, voting on the nomination?
I abstain.
Okay, so there's 7 yays, no nays, and 1 abstention. So congratulations, Chris, and I guess it's your ball game from here.
Right. I will take nominations for vice chair at this time.
I'll nominate Bob Hudak for vice chair.
No, I nominate Sarah for vice chair.
I respectfully decline.
Okay, then I would second Sarah's nomination as vice chair.
Okay. There are any other ones? Seeing there's no one else. Is, I guess we'll just, I can't pronounce how that, whatever Jim said, all that.
Chris nominated Sarah. I'm sorry to be.
Yeah, go ahead. That's
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Acclamation, is that what you're looking for?
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Acclamation. So everyone in favor say aye.
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 So everyone agrees and Sarah is vice chair.
Sarah, I was trying to take you off the hook there. But
I
It is
can
what it
handle
is.
vice chair. I just, yeah, I can handle vice chair. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to do treasurer.
No, we don't need to do treasurer. Well,
Oh, well, no, secretary. I meant
yeah.
to say secretary. I'm looking at Ellen and I'm thinking secretary.
I nominate Ellen for secretary.
I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for secretary? Seeing there's no other nominations, through acclamation, Ellen, we'll vote for Ellen. How many people are in favor of Ellen being secretary?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Seeing that the offices have been filled and if the reorganization meeting has been done, let's move on.
There's no treasurer? That's not something that
No,
we do?
there's never been a treasurer.
It's not really a treasurer. I mean, I get the financials, but because we don't really have, it's not in our rules to have a treasurer.
Okay.
But it's kind of listed after my name simply because I work with DPW to get the financials and to report them to you guys, but not really an official role.
Sounds good.
Oh, by the way, is there a financial statement or trust accounting of the trust that any monies that Shade Tree utilizes or recommends to be utilizes? Is that done on a yearly basis? Or
I-
does
I
that go through this committee?
I
It's-
get a report from the DPW of money spent in any given period. I try to get it monthly and report on it, and I will talk about that a little later. Like the next item in the agenda, I'll tell you what I've got.
Okay, no
Just-
problem. I didn't know if there was a
Looking
yearly.
for, we can discuss something else, but I can tell you what I have.
Yeah.
I don't send it around to everybody. I could, but I haven't.
I just didn't know if there was a yearly process format, paper document that, on a yearly basis, the group or anybody would have.
We try to look, Sarah looks at it monthly, and if there's something that she thinks should be brought to the committee, she usually does. Because usually
That's
there's they don't use the shade tree fund very often.
No, I understand. That's fine. I just didn't know. Some things are done on a yearly basis. It's not a problem. I was just curious.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we're going to move on to the secretary's report. Are there any changes? Or is everybody happy with the secretary report? In that case, I'll take a nomination to approve the secretary's report for November.
Is that the minutes we're talking about?
Yes, minutes.
Yeah, sorry. Let me get over to it. A couple things. Old business. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up here. Yes, old business. I was invited by Bob V and Councilman Wright. I never received an invitation.
Oh, so how should that be phrased?
I
that's what I thought
think
you
what I
said at
had
the
said, that I
meeting.
was in
Yeah.
contact with Councilman Wright 2 times, and I've never I
But that-
received an invitation, but he never set which meeting to attend.
Okay, so I picked up on the fact that you'd gotten an invitation. So,
But that shouldn't be in the minutes, should it? Unless he said that last month, in
he
November.
said it last month, at the November meeting.
I did
wrote
say
down-
November.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
a recap of what was going on or not going on.
Okay, so how should that read then, Bob? That you've just been in contact with Councilman Wright to present on the condition of the trees. Would that be a better way to state it?
Yeah, I've been in contact with Councilman Wright 2 times. No meeting has been set for presentation.
Um,
No meeting time, date.
How about date to be determined?
Right.
Okay, I will make that correction.
New business, Middle Bush Park presentation. Could you make that R Hudak as opposed to B Hukak?
Yes, good catch, thank you.
Okay. And maybe you can advise me on procedure here under going back up top to number 3, Treasuries Report. C. Williams offered the draft communication requesting clarification on procedures. I guess we'll be talking about that in this upcoming meeting.
Where is that?
No, I just wrote the minutes as we discussed the items this time.
Yeah, number 3.
We're on number 3. That's a long paragraph.
I'm sorry, all the way on the bottom, last sentence.
Oh, requesting clarification on procedures.
Mhm.
So what is your question, Bob? Is there a problem with the way that was written? Or you just want to know what happens next?
Right, are we following up on that this
Okay,
meeting?
that would be part of the rest of the agenda. We're just, but it's not changing how the minutes were written, right?
No, not at all. I was
Okay,
just
so-
asking procedurally how we follow up on that. Okay,
When we talk about the treasurer's report, we can talk about it, which is next.
thank you.
So any changes to that paragraph then?
No, that's fine. Just a question. Thank you.
I do have one possible change to that paragraph going back up top. In
Okay.
the 3rd line where it starts, the expenditure to purchase trees prompted discussion from members about what trees were purchased for where and whether the commission blah, blah, blah. I believe it should say from members about what trees were purchased and then add by the DPW.
All right.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm good with the minutes.
Good catch.
All right, then I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Second,
All in favor of the minutes as accepted?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved. Treasurer's report.
Okay, treasurer's report. So at the beginning of last year, we had $209,000, 190 in the account. At the end of last year, we had $265,000 in the account. So a net change of about $54,800 has come into the account since last year. And since the beginning of this year, there were just 2 items that came in. Both of them were reimbursements. One from Dimitrakis Contractors for 40 Sudan, $750, and one from for the Next Gen Builders for $360. And that's the only changes. To your question, Jim, I don't know if you guys can see this if I hold it up, but this is what I prepare from a report that I get from DPW, and I can. Mariana is being really great about getting me this information when I request it. So I could send this out to you guys when we send the minutes and the agenda out, if you think that would be helpful. We haven't done it because we weren't getting the reports for such a long time, but we are now getting them on a regular basis.
Well, that's a decision for, I guess, all of you to decide, majority rule. I simply was, whether you want to do it on a month-to-month basis. I'm on a lot of different committees, nonprofits and whatnot, and everybody does it a little bit differently, but I was just curious, usually every group that has a fund that they deal with, there's like an end of the year document that usually is seen and reviewed and maybe irrelevant and not even discussed. It's just that's really what I was pointing at. But if the group decides, because maybe there's more transactions going on or more activity, that's up to the group. But I'm really not trying to sway you to do one or the other. I know I'd always like reviewing a yearly document about any group's finances, not because there's a problem, just to kind of learn and refamiliarize.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll shut up now.
If I could, I think, as I recall, I think way in the past, we used to get monthly reports on what the balance was, whether it's necessary or not. Again, that's up to everybody, I guess. But I should have brought this up when we were reviewing the minutes, and I forgot, because it says in there, in the minutes again, in the tree planting, a balance of $685 in other expenses account. And I wasn't sure what that was. What is that other expenses account?
That's the account where they pay for our membership to the New Jersey Shade Tree Federation. If we attended, sessions where we had to pay to get CEUs, the Shade Tree municipal memberships come out of that account. So those sorts of things.
So that's the name of the account, other expenses.
It's called other
And
expenses.
that's
Shade
basically
Tree expenses.
that's basically our budget that we get from the township from the year. Is that?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And
Okay,
last
good.
year it started with $1,000 in it. And then there was, some expenditures. And
I'm just curious as to why we need to get a budget from the township when that money could be going to other things in the township, when we have over $260,000 in the shade tree, and all of the things that you talked about, whether it's for going to conferences or anything like that, can be paid for out of our shade tree trust fund.
Arnie, that's the way that the township chose to do the accounting. Makes it easier on them. I don't know where the money may come from, trust fund that goes in there, but they chose to do it that way for accounting purposes.
Okay, I just asking the question.
Chris, do you know how long ago, Arnie, I'm just interjecting relevant to what you just said. Do you know how long ago they opted for that?
I believe this is the second year they've done it, but
So just in a recent couple of years?
yes, but
Okay.
I don't know where the money comes from. I'm assuming they take it out of their trust fund and put it into this.
Well, I don't know, and that's a curious question because, and it's not a big issue, so I don't want to make a big deal about it. But in general, every organization, environmental, or this works, historic, they don't usually, unless there's a special request, or sometimes they're conferred with. But sometimes the township manager or the staff liaison, based on what they think dues for an organization or some course somebody wants to take, so they all submit, and then they're anywhere from maybe a couple $100 to a couple $1,000. So we kind of give, as part of our review of budget, every organization an amount or a proven amount. In this case, since you already have your own fund, I don't know if it's legal that money's used for the commission. It sounds like it would be legal because this is a specifically Shade Tree Commission doing the work. But there may be a reason, or it just may be an oversight as to whether or not the money is just pulled from there anyway and you need a separate line item, or it could just be that they want a designated amount for other expenses for every civilian committee and board in town. I don't know if
I-
that,
Did
If
we
I
have this
might,
conversation a couple
might
years
have-
ago? Carl Hauk made a comment that there was so much money set up for us for training? Or is that in addition with him? I thought there
I
was some
think-
money set aside specifically into
I
an
think-
account of
I
which
think Carl's the
is
one. That,
used for training.
I think Carl's the one that set up this fund, this other account.
Could be.
Yeah.
like
Well,
historic preservation, by the way, they take courses. I think they have to like do certain stuff and other they do on their own.
we do-
And then there's
we
also
do-
an historic preservation trust that they don't control completely, but have, are involved in how that money may be spent. So it sounds like when there's a separate trust that it's two separate accounts. And that's what you have, correct?
Yes,
A
Yeah.
separate
we
account
have
for
two
other-
separate accounts, and I would like to
Makes
look into this to be sure, but I believe it might have to do with the fact that our charter is a shade tree commission and how we're set up with the state, that we have certain requirements that we have to meet every year. We have to have an Arbor Day event, we have to have X number of dollars, I think it's $2 per capita spent by the township on shade tree activities and a couple other things. And I think part of that might be membership in the Shade Tree Federation, in which case that is something the township would want to pay for. But I'd have to go back and read. I mean, I haven't read that document in, a decade practically, but I think it might be related to that. So it isn't a huge fee. It's, there's, it's $230 or something, $300 maybe for all of us to be members in the Shade Tree Federation, which meets that requirement, which is what's coming out of that account. But that's what's sticking in the back of my head, that it has to do with our charter as a shade tree commission in the state, and with the whole liability process. But I'd have to read up on it to be sure. So I guess the bottom line is, if that's true, then it can't come from the trust fund. It has to be something that the township puts out there.
Yeah, and it's probably best that it's kept separate. And it sounds like a couple of years ago, the finance department specifically, and is aware and set it up that way. It sounds great. So unless the committee feels there isn't enough for whatever memberships or courses or other legitimate functions you think need be supported by that budget, then I guess you don't really need to do anything.
Yeah.
No, I don't. We haven't tapped into that. The only thing we tap it in for is for the shade tree membership, or tree membership. But no one else has taken any classes recently.
Yeah.
Can we look into that to see where that money is? If there's money set aside for training classes, et cetera?
Just for information, I looked up the code in the municipal code, the section on the shade tree fund, and it says it's to be used for purchase of trees for planting and not limited to training, public education, awareness and outreach, et cetera, as part of the township forestry management plan. So it looks like it's a little bit more expansive than I would have thought. I'm not an attorney, of course, but just saying from the wording, it sounds like it's not restricted to just buying trees.
That's true, but we're talking, but that's the regular trust fund. The
Right.
other fund is the membership on the Shade Tree Federation. So it's two different
gotcha.
things. Just
Oh,
saying,
okay. I thought they were the same. Sorry.
Yeah.
I guess I just would have thought that all of those activities would have been eligible to come out of the trust fund.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's making it more complex than it needs to be.
So if
Yeah.
we do take training, as we have in the past, does a request need to be made in advance to be reimbursed for that, or is
Oh
this?
yeah, so you have to have, if you want to take a class, the request for taking that class has to be submitted to Public Works, way in advance.
Specifically Carl, right?
Well, Yes,
Yes, okay. Carl Hauk.
right. Okay. So we're moving on from that.
No,
Please.
I guess I'm waiting for Guy. I would like to know, would any of you, just a quick show of hands, would you like to see this document sent out to you on a monthly basis with your other documents?
I think quarterly would be fine.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, not for this group, but who knows what group in the future, it's probably better than not to always be very transparent on things with money. You know, no reflection on this crew, of course, but I'm just saying, you never
Well,
go
we
wrong
can't
for making
spend it
sure
anyway.
everybody knows where the money is.
Yeah. And
We
I mean,
don't
that's the
spend
bottom
it.
line. We're not spending
Don't
it.
spend it. That's right, don't spend it.
It's just a reporting of
No,
what is
it's-
out there and what the township is spending.
Yes,
So if
it's,
you guys want to
they
see that
spend
on
the
a monthly
money.
basis, I'm happy to send it to you. If you want to do it quarterly, I'm happy to do that.
If it's not a problem monthly, then that would be great. I mean, I was
Yeah,
just
I
saying
requested
quarterly, you know,
monthly.
if it's
Yeah.
difficult, but monthly would be great if it's not a
It's not
problem.
difficult. Okay.
Well, I mean, look at our recent finding that we had in November, that we found monies were spent by DPW.
It's a very
And,
good point. Yes.
and so if that was quarterly, we would be discussing it now instead of then. I'd like to stick with it monthly. It doesn't take that much time. If we get it, we can talk about it. Zoom, zoom, zoom. It goes fast. If there's something that pops up, then we discuss it. But otherwise, I think we have to be mindful of where monies go. I think to Steve's point, I don't know if he's advocating monthly, but I think I'd like to see it.
I think for
Okay.
the exact reason that Bob said, I think I would agree with that.
Okay, great. I will happily do that.
Okay. May I have a nomination to open a meeting to the public? Do we have any public, Sarah?
We do not have any public.
Hold on. We
Yeah, hold on. We have
need to
flush
address something
everything.
under Treasuries Report. This was the
Yeah.
point I brought up before about Chris offered to draft communication requesting clarification on procedures. Is this where we discuss it?
Yes, it would be.
Look, I contacted Carl about, the purchase of trees. And he just told me, I bought them for the parks. These are the trees I bought, and never said any other thing about it.
This
No.
is
Didn't he
the
say that he got
correspondence
them?
you sent out, right?
Yes.
Didn't he say that he got them from the list and they were the same trees that were there previously? Is that the letter you're talking about?
Same trees that were there previously. He got them from the list on the township site. And we have to modify that list. I hope we can get to that this year, modify that list, because there's a couple trees that need to come off that list.
What's the possibility of, because this has been lingering for a couple of years, this list, what's the possibility of hiring a consultant to do that if we give them very specific parameters, and that money would come out of the Shade Tree Trust Fund? We'd
Arnie, I
want
have
to,
that under new
we would
business.
want to, send it out for bid and see, how much it would cost. If it's an outrageous amount, no, but if it's, a reasonable amount, to have somebody do that for us, it won't linger for another couple of years, because it's an important issue.
Yes, it is. I agree. Who wants to volunteer to do the research on how that much would cost to have a consultant do?
Well, I don't know if it's a matter of research to see how much it would cost a consultant to do. It's a matter of being able to setting the criteria of what it is that we want done, and then putting it out for bid.
We would
And they
have
would,
to
and
go,
they would let us know how much it's going to cost. And when they tell us, if it's a couple of $1,000s, then, I would find it acceptable. If it's $50,000, I would say that's not acceptable. So we don't accept any bids and we try and do it ourselves.
okay.
Arnie, I don't know if you heard me, but I have reference to this under new business.
Well, we're
To this
talking
very
about, I
point.
did not hear you, but we're talking about it now since it came up.
Can I
I
just
don't know
get
if this is
clarification
the right
on,
place.
List of trees, are we talking about for development application or,
No, not the development. This is, trees were purchased in 2001, probably September, for parks. We were never, they never considered asking us if these were good trees or not. They just went out, purchased the trees and planted them. That's the trees we're talking about.
and if I read it correctly, the reference was made to a previous list that was approved by Shade Tree Commission. So
Not
that's
shade tree, that was a previous list a long time ago that the
That's-
Environmental
list.
Commission put together.
oh, okay. And that's the list you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the one that's the reference to the landscape guidelines for development applications that we have on the agenda under initiatives projects. That's further down the.
So it is the same list of trees. And so we had started working on that a year
Yes.
ago.
Yeah, and nothing has come of it. So I'm going to make a motion. The motion being,
Arnie, could I stop you there though? Because just the timing of it, that is on the agenda later on. And this is the treasurer's report where we are on the agenda. And the comment was really just Bob's to clarify whether or not Chris had actually done what was listed there under the treasurer's report in the minutes to say that he offered draft communication and he did do that and did get a report back from the DPW. But I think any further clarification and discussion about doing a landscape guidelines for development ought to come later in the agenda.
I'm fine with that, Sarah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we can just kind of keep things tidier and Ellen doesn't go nuts trying to do it. Her first minutes of the year.
Okay. I know I haven't done it yet, but we've asked, there's no public to, just so we have it for the record, there's no public that wants to come into the meeting and make comments.
No
So-
public in attendance.
Right. So we're moving on. Commission requirements, volunteer hours.
Yeah, I'm still working on that. And then I'm also going to be working. We have February 15th is the deadline for submitting the annual report to the state. And so Connor, heads up, I'm going to be talking to you this week. We got to get the documentation on the CEUs and I'll be sending that list of things that I need that you usually send out to the tree foreman to get the financial numbers and the counts and stuff. So I'll probably be on Monday. I'll send you an email and let you know everything that I need. Okay.
Sarah, I'll confess, I haven't complied.
I know.
I just wrote it down again.
Yeah. If you people who haven't sent yours in, you know who you are. Let's do it ASAP.
Guilty.
Yeah. But February 15th is our deadline and I don't really want to be late this year. We've been late so many times.
Okay. So that's done. Tree planting projects, maintenance update. Connor, do you have anything for us on that? On any of these projects I have listed?
What do you want to know?
Okay. There was a crooked tree observed on JFK Boulevard. We know what caused that tree to be crooked?
Yeah, a car ran into it. Me and the one road foreman I was working with that day, we kind of bent it back up and we kind of compacted the soil right there just to give it a chance.
Okay, what about
It's a
staking?
little messed up on it.
Can you stake it so it stays straight?
I can look around. I can see if we have stakes. And yeah, I'll try and get that.
Okay,
But
thank you.
as of now, it's standing up, and so we're gonna give it the winter. We'll see what it does.
Okay. Hope it survives. Okay, nothing on the trees in Williams Park, Inman Park, or Middle Bush Park. There was
I have a comment on Hamilton Street when you're done.
well, we're not, that is down the list, Bob.
Oh, that's right. It's on top.
Okay, is it? Okay.
That was before this. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
JFK Boulevard, name it, there's Hamilton Street. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, Chris, just to ask again for an update, what your town's reaction has been when you contacted them about the sign that was nailed into the street on Hamilton?
You know, I don't think I contacted on that particular subject. Connor, did
Okay.
you? What do you do about people nailing signs onto the trees? Is there any ordinance or anything else we can nail people with?
Not that I know of. I mean, I'm not really familiar with the ordinances. The only ordinance I kind of know is the right of way one, where
Okay.
that pertains
Yes.
to us.
Specifically, Chris, when I did the presentation, you said you were going to look into it. I sent you a copy of the actual photo. You're going to contact the township if they were going to go actually call that phone number that was on the sign.
Bob, I'm bad. I didn't do it. I should have, and I didn't do it. I'm sorry.
All right, so I guess we'll take that one off then. Okay, thank you.
Just clarification. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe there's an ordinance that on public property, you know, right of ways, that signs cannot be attached to anything. I don't know if it specifically says trees, but like you can't put them on light poles and telephone poles, and I believe that includes trees. I'd have to go back and read it, but I do not believe.
That's public property. I guess it's the easement or right of way.
It's the right of way.
If we're talking about trees in the right of way, that's, I thought that's what the one you were referring to. I vaguely remember it.
Yeah.
That conversation months back. But I'll be honest, I think it happens rarely. And I think in the few times I remember, either they mentioned it to the person if they knew, or if they didn't know, it was just removed. But I don't think it's something that happens a lot. So I don't think there's been like enforcement. It's
Okay.
just we try to obviously keep them. We don't want anything nailed to trees on public property.
This has been going on near 6 months. Can we get DPW just to get to that? I can forward the address to Connor and just have him go down and take it out.
Take the sign off.
Take the sign off and the nail, please. Connor, can I do that?
Yeah, if I'm in the area, I'll take care of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So now we're down to public information, education, events.
Middle Bush Park. That's has
Oh, that's
my
right.
name on there. That's going to be moved over to. I thought my name was there.
It's
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I was just gonna
Yeah,
stop you and say that.
yeah, it's going to. That's moved to February.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And how should that be on the agenda when I do put that in there, Bob? Are you doing a presentation?
Presentation under Middle Bush Park. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be PowerPoint.
Okay. So now we're going to move down to public information, education, events, and community outreach. First of all, they gave us a full page in the Franklin paper for the mulching of trees or trimming of trees. It was trimming of trees. I was quite impressed.
Yeah.
Wasn't a full
Bob
page,
and
was
Mary
it?
did a good job on that
Yeah, it was a
article.
full
That's why
page.
that's-
I guess they had. They
Noticed that.
I
I know.
I guess they didn't have anything else.
They were desperate.
It was
I
you
gotta
guys
say,
did a
there's
good
enough,
job.
light this time.
Yeah, Bob and Mary did a good job on the article.
But we sure hope it got noticed.
Yeah.
Full page. I think it did. I noticed it. That's whoa. It stuck right out.
Yeah,
So,
I've reached out to Wendy, although she's been promoted someplace else, and I think someone else is coming in to control Franklin Times. to get the schedule of when they're going to put out what our submission deadlines are and when their publication deadlines are. I impressed on her that we wanted to try to do more seasonally sensitive articles, and that would help us understand what we could write about. But she, at the time I first asked her for it, they didn't have the schedule figured out yet, and as I was reading through the notes, I was reminding myself today that I need to do that. So I prompted her today about that. And she forwarded to someone else who didn't get back to me today. So I'll have that information at the next meeting, what our deadlines are.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment for the next article. So we are actually on Franklin Times.
Yes,
Yes.
we can talk about
Okay.
Franklin Times.
I guess once my brain gets going, it doesn't get turned off sometimes. So I was thinking of the next article. How about us? What is the Shade Tree Commission? What do they do?
I think that'd be great.
Okay.
There's a few commissions in town. Well, depending who you ask, people may not know what any of them do, but there's a few that honestly, I think are just a little bit more of a mystery than others, including this committee. I don't mean that in a good or bad way, but I think it'd be great.
We'll take kudos.
Okay.
So Sarah, so when you get a deadline, we need to get onto it, I guess. Is Franklin Times publishing 4 or 3 times a year now?
Three, but there is oh, I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's 3, but I don't know.
Yeah, it is 3. Years back was 4. There's
Right.
let's just say, a good amount of people who feel it should be 4 again. But during COVID, everything got all out of sync with publishing dates and deadlines and stuff. So I think the idea was to get back on track after COVID. But I would support it being 4. That will be a decision made when we review the budget at our budget hearings in March. But count on 3. But what I would suggest is it never is a bad idea to have articles already ready to go. And then if something changes or has to be added, it's always easy to just tweak an article out. But if there's room to have something ready to go is always a good thing.
Okay.
I think that's good. And I think we'll get to it later on the agenda. Well, I guess we're going to get to it pretty soon, but we got Arbor Day. We know we're going to do that. And
Yes.
hopefully the timing will be such that we'll get to do an article about Arbor Day and prompt people. So, perhaps it could be a compound article where we talk about what the Shade Tree Commission is and what it does. And then we could have a promotion for the Shade Tree or for the Arbor Day event. Obviously, we have a lot of details to come up with on the second part of that one. We could easily draft the first part now.
Okay.
Yeah, we could talk about the events that we're involved in, and then obviously expand on Arbor Day. If the time is going to
Give us
coordinate.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Public inquiries about tree reporting process. I don't know where that stands. We know what we have to do to report a hazardous tree. You go on the website and you report it. But we don't know what the response is. I guess somebody has to find a hazardous tree and report it and see how they respond to it. I know I had my ash tree removed, and so did my neighbor have his ash tree removed.
So are we talking about, is there an SOP out there? Is that what we're saying?
Yes. I believe the SOP is you go to the township website and you go under PTW, and you reported. I have to refresh myself with that process. My memory's going. I'm getting bad at remembering things. So,
If I may, that may be where we have this article. We can put in some how do I want to say, where the public needs to know what type of things, what contacts, how they can contact for certain things. This would be one of the things we should put in there.
okay, that's a good idea. We can have it.
We have the chance to introduce ourselves. We can put a number of important phone numbers or procedures or something in there.
Right.
Not too complicated, but just direct the public to where they may have an inquiry on something.
Okay.
And then our website may reflect that,
Yeah.
or it's a link to DPW. I don't know. Maybe they can go to two
Is the
two
township
places.
done updating their website? Jim, do you know that?
Township just did a major overhaul. You noticed that website, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it completed?
I don't know. I'm not on the IT steering team. No, I'm serious. I'd
Okay.
like to think it isn't, but I don't see any indication that anything else is being done to it. And that's probably all I should say.
Okay.
Single.
Because we really need to. I know people were working on updating our website. I don't know where that stands.
You mean IT people?
No.
Township?
Yeah,
Oh,
no, we were
you're-
gonna redesign some, yeah, I was gonna help.
Redesign
I
our
told you
website.
I needed to wait until the beginning of the new year, so now I'm in the hot seat, so I can actually tell you that I really do want to fix the website up. There's a couple of a couple of resources, even that are mentioned in the last article that need to be posted, but the website was being redesigned and we weren't supposed to submit anything, and now that it's done, I guess, we should, I think, talk about what we have a small group get together and talk about what could be done, and then for our site itself, the resources, the materials, and then get everybody's input, and then send it to IT to do, and then work with IT to have it fixed.
Okay.
just curious.
And I'm very willing to shepherd that whole process because I have, I think, a pretty good relationship with the IT people so far.
Okay. Does anybody have a copy of the um, tree planting guidelines for developments?
The landscape, the
Yeah, I think we all do.
landscape guidelines, yeah, we all do.
Okay. I probably lost mine because I got a new computer. So can someone forward that to me? 'Cause
I can-
I'll look at that. I'll see what I can do with that myself. I'll have to take a break from bird watching and do that. Okay. So
So
Okay.
Bob, let me just ask, Bob, you were really useful or helpful on getting some ideas for that Franklin Times article. Would you be willing to help me with the resources section of the website? Bob?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
okay.
Send
Oh.
send me a reminder when you're ready to
Yep.
chat or whatever.
So,
So the landscape guidelines, somebody send me a copy of that. The other thing is Arbor Day. Okay. Arnie, the ball's in your court. Where do we stand with Arbor Day at Kingston School?
Well, that's a very good question. So, we had originally been given Ms. Pavlik as the contact for that. And I tried contacting her a couple of weeks ago, and through email, that's all I had. I didn't get any response from her. Then I went back and looked through some emails, and she had told me that there was a Kristen Ort who was in charge of the tree planting. I tried contacting her, no response from her. I then contacted the school. I Googled the school, got a phone number, and I was able to contact a Michelle Tan. And she works in the administrative office there. She told me that Ms. Pavlik is with the Kingston Historic Commission. And she said that Kristen Ort is just a parent at the school. And I said, well, who are we? And I explained to her why we were trying to contact her about the original email was that Chris and I were going to come out, take a look at the site and decide where we were going to plant the tree. And based on where we were going to plant the tree, we would determine what kind of tree we're going to plant. So she said, okay, and just send me an email. So I sent her an email last week. I copied Chris on it. I did not receive a response from her. I called her again, got voicemail, left a message, have not heard back from her.
Are they, I wonder if they're in COVID shutdown.
Well, I spoke to her last week. I spoke to Michelle
still-
Tan, who
yeah.
said she's the person in charge.
I thought it was 2 weeks ago, to be honest with you. Okay,
January 20th is when I spoke to her. That was a week ago today.
yeah, right.
And if they're in COVID shutdown, I don't know, but I think COVID has been getting better, not worse. So I just, what the story is, I will continue to try and contact her. But
Yeah, Arnie, when we were originally talking to them back in March of 2020, our communications were going directly to Kristen Ort, copying Kathy Pavlik, Wenlin Sue, Ted Chase was involved,
mhm.
you, Carl, and Laura Desai, DESAI, also with, looks like she's with the school.
Mhm.
So yeah, those were the people we were talking with.
Yeah.
And
The only thing
Well-
I'm thinking of, if we're gonna purchase a tree, we're going to need that to get the order in pretty soon to Carl saying we want this tree. So,
Well, Sarah, if you have any other people who you think I can contact with their contact information, I would be happy to try and contact them. But this Michelle Tan said, I'm in charge. I'm the one.
okay.
I
thanks
don't know.
for-
It sounds like a subversive group to me that just wants a free tree.
So,
Sounds like
so
they don't want a free tree.
There are those groups out there, you know.
If they wanted a free tree, they would have responded to my phone calls and my emails.
this is interesting. Well, gosh, we need an Arbor Day event.
By next meeting, we'll have it decided, Sarah.
Well, again, I will continue to contact Michelle Tan. Sarah, if you have other people for me to contact, please send me their contact names and contact information. Other than that of Ted Chase, I have that, but I don't see a need to contact him at this point. I think we should be dealing with the school.
I agree. I can just forward you the last thread we had back in March. It's got, all the other email addresses on it. And you can pick up anybody that you don't already have.
Yeah, I have emails going back to February of 20.
Okay, then you probably got everything I've got then.
I have Ted, Sarah, Connor, and somebody named Amazon, AMZEMAN.
Now, we've got, I know Sarah and I both got an email from the state arborist, asking if we wanted trees to give away again.
Yeah. So that would be a cool thing to do for this, as well as plant a tree. Kids
Yes,
can have little seedlings. It's the tree recovery campaign again. But we have to get it in quickly. That's, I think, on the agenda for new business that we have to vote on it.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool if we had a tree planting, whether it's in Kingston or somewhere else. We did the tree planting, and at the same time, we could advertise it as we are giving away these trees also.
Right.
So
Yes.
do we want to think about an alternate place to
Yeah.
plant the tree if Kingston doesn't come through?
Okay.
Yeah,
Connor,
I think we
definitely.
need to.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't respond, at least before the next meeting, I think we have to have an alternate site, another school. I'm sure we could.
I would give them a date that you need a response by, and then that'll give us a little cushion to go to choice number 2.
Well, the date was that they were supposed to, Ms. Tan was supposed to contact Chris and myself last week
Hmm.
to give us a date where he and I, or 2 weeks ago, I think Chris might be right, 2 weeks ago, so that we could meet out there last week
yes.
to go to the site, and this person did not respond. So that's why I tried to contact her again and hope to get another date for this week. Now I'll shoot for next week. And if we don't hear from her for next week, then I have to figure that we need to have an alternate site.
Yeah.
Perhaps maybe just cast a broad net and send it out to a bunch of contacts you have there and saying, we'd like to meet, and this is the date we need to finalize things by. And if nobody acts on it,
Of course,
maybe
Chris,
number
you and
3
I could
too.
just show up on their doorstep
I'm
someday.
thinking it's gonna be nice and warm next week, unlike Tuesday. I think Wednesday is calling for 50 degrees. So
Do you want to go out there next week?
yes, that's what I was thinking. We'll go out there next week, either Tuesday or Wednesday, and just show up.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's.
We'll coordinate that after the meeting, Chris, because I have to look at my schedule. And I'm sure you have to look at yours also.
I don't have a schedule.
Yeah, you do. Your birds keep your schedule.
That's it. Go bird. I do a 2-mile walk every day down the canal. You know, I get to see eagles and other things down there. It's nice. Nice place to go for a walk. Okay. So in that case, is there any park we want to do? Because if you could do we can do a school, we can do a park. Connor, is there any park that needs a tree?
They could all use trees.
That's what I was gonna say. Pick
hmm.
anyone you want.
Gee, that
Pick a
sounds
park,
familiar.
any park.
When we were discussing this back in 2020, I thought we came up with a list of all the possibilities that that we could do.
I know we planted one at what the heck's the name of the park? We planted one at Williams. We haven't planted one at Inman Park, lately.
How many do you plant?
We just plant one.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought. It just okay. The one symbolic.
Yeah,
type
that's
thing.
symbolic one. And then we have a good turnout if we're ever giving away trees. Everybody wants a free tree. I mean, when we did it at,
Sarah's
in
place.
Williams, a bunch of people showed up. When we did it at Middle Bush, a bunch of people showed up. So by having
If we're
They're doing
if
a
we're at
Castleton Park.
what's that?
No, I said, welcome to do it at Castleton Park. That's park in the middle of our ward. But actually, they planted a handful of trees there in the last summer, I believe it was, right, Connor?
Back in November, I think we did all the plantings.
Yeah, or last fall. I'm sorry. Yeah, actually,
Did any of them die?
what's that?
Did any of them die?
I think they're pretty new. I think they're fine, and we wouldn't be able to tell till the spring. But in reference to that, and it's something I got to bring up as far as being able to do it through another committee, council committee I work on. But there is, and I'm only bringing this up because it's Arbor Day. I don't know if this would even be relevant, but there's an area when you pull into Castleton Park. In the last couple of years, we redid the entire parking lot. Completely redesigned, a lot of stuff over there. But anyway, when you pull in, there's houses on the street behind it that
Yeah.
used to have tree cover, and when they did these other renovations and a few trees were taken out and removed, I don't know if they were dead or got knocked over or whatnot, but there's like a gap of, I don't know, between 40 and 80 feet that has no trees. So when you pull in all the, you're looking at a house where there used to be a tree line. So whether it's part of the Arbor Day or part of a separate initiative that I request trees, I was hoping that the Shade Tree Commission, that this group would recommend the best trees to plant there, both for staying alive and having the fastest growth for coverage, that they blend in with the ones that already are to the left and right that form a barrier. It's like a buffer along the whole back of the park for the street behind it.
Yeah,
So
what is the street name?
the street that has that backs is Shelley Drive,
Shelley Drive. Okay.
and there's just like a little hole in the gap that, or the run of what used to be about 800-foot run, where there was a little buffer. And again, when the construction new parking lot, you could see it when you pull in, and both for aesthetics and to give the buffer back that was there. Well, it's hard to describe, but you would see.
Oh, yeah.
So whether it was the symbolic tree that was being planted, or as a separate initiative that, you can give your recommendations, because I'm going to ultimately ask that the gap be filled in, that was once there, or that was once tree line.
Can you take a picture of it and send it to everybody? Send us an
I
email.
might be able to do that. Connor, are you familiar with what I'm referring to?
Yeah, I know exactly that area. It's along the baseball field in the back of the park, right?
Well, but the spot that was left, and there's a little gap down that end, but the spot that was left where
Are you
just
talking about like when you enter in the parking lot?
yeah, where you guys take the truck through the back of that lot where you had the big mound of dirt and stuff when we were doing the big renovations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we have to be careful over there because I know there is a gas line that runs through there. I don't know how big it is, but I know there is a gas line that runs through that. So I don't know planting wise, but
Well, your SOP is get a stakeout, right? For anything that you plant.
yeah.
Oh, there's a gas line there, definitely. But there was trees and there are trees. So yes, it would have to be done obviously through all the proper safety protocols. But you're familiar with that barren little stretch that was left.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. But if you guys want to just play your arbitrary there, you're welcome. But on a bigger note, if you guys can make recommendations, and I will try to take a picture.
We have to find out about that gas line because the gas companies come through and mow everything down. They don't want trees growing on their gas.
They have the right of way, I think, to do all that. Utilities.
Yes, so we have to check out where that utility is and where their right of way is before we start planting trees over there.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying there was an existing tree line buffer behind it, but absolutely you would and I'm sure Carl or Connor, through their they would know the protocol. But I think it's a good spot, a great spot to replace what was a beautiful buffer.
The township site, your GPS site would probably let you know where the gas line was.
Oh, there's a sign. Actually, Connor, the sign got knocked down. It's like angled, but there's a gas site because there's a few of them along that back stretch that you're talking about, the baseball field. There's a few of those yellow things that show gas line and tells the name of the gas company.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
No, it's all staked out pretty well.
okay.
That was just a suggestion for a site. That's why I mentioned it. If you're looking for an alternative place to plant a tree.
Thank you, Jim.
Mm.
So I sent plans of Hamilton Street tree plantings. Now I was approached with an email from Vincent saying they want the township to plant some trees there. But is Vincent here for comment?
There's no attendees. He's not here. Yeah, he requested, I thought he was going to come in and make a formal request tonight.
Yeah, that's what I thought he was gonna do. And then we could complain about the tree plan because they want to plant 18 trees of the same type in a row. I
Well,
don't,
we agreed, we approved that plan.
did we? Was that the plan we approved with 18 trees in a row?
No, the
We
consultant
had-
said definitely they were going to stagger them.
Well, they were doing different trees on different sides of the street.
Right.
But they wanted some sense of commonality. We approved it. They discussed it with us and went over it. If that is I would have to dig way back through minutes on it, but we approved their plan that they discussed it with us and we approved it. So
Okay.
there's a
So,
variety of
I'll point
trees up and down the street. It's not like they're planting in the entire Hamilton street with the same trees.
Oh,
Right.
They're switching sides with different kinds, but they're
Right.
doing in groups. So you have sort of
Right.
it's a calmer streetscape with a whole lot of busy buildings to have similar trees in one area and then just switch them in another area. And they talked to us all about that philosophy.
yeah.
So
Okay.
Chris, Vincent is Mr. D is asking that the township plant the trees in?
He just, I don't know if the township's gonna plant the trees. Did you hear anything about that, Connor?
I did not. I
Okay.
usually find that stuff out the day that we do it.
No.
My read of it was that they were going to have them planted and that whoever planted them was responsible for them immediately after planting. And then at some point, they would become the responsibility of the DPW to maintain.
Right.
And that
Yeah, there was a
just
specific
quick
site.
email. He was going to come and explain all that to us. And
Yeah. I mean, they may put out a contract for somebody to plant the trees, and they were going to have us pay for the trees. We weren't going to be paying for the labor, but we would be paying for the trees.
yeah.
I have no problem paying for trees. Jim?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Chris. I was at the meeting and actually suggested that they confer with you because the tree situation is in disarray. And I don't want to speak for Vince, but he's the executive director and of the Hamilton board. It's another hat he wears. After a long discussion, which I kind of just was observing, and then when I saw it going nowhere and realized nobody really knew you guys, or maybe knew you existed, but didn't understand the process. They're basically, long story short, my understanding is they're looking for you, and I say you guys, I don't mean to be disrespectful, this group to pay for the trees, obviously not personally out of the trust fund, and B, guide them as to what to plant and any recommendations about the treescape, because although to date there's probably 3 or 4 versions of what were good and probably pretty expensive plans done by professionals, things have been happening in a haphazard, inconsistent way with tree plantings and a lot of things not being planted. PSE&G coming and mutilating trees, other trees just dying from age or disease. I don't want to go on, but they're basically do not have the tree expertise or a quick, simple funding mechanism. And quite frankly, the Hamilton board, you guys, everybody probably knows there's been a lot of development on Hamilton, but are a little upset, understandably, that the streetscape, especially the treescape portion of the streetscape, has kind of fallen into an abyss. So they're looking for the money and they're looking for strategic, guidance as to what to plant, recommendations on maintenance, recommendations on what not to plant, and to have a consistency through that whole 1.4 mile corridor of Hamilton Street.
Jim,
So
CME came to us with a very well drawn out plan of
Mhm.
what they were removing and why. In fact, they basically were removing everything because it was
We,
either,
the
as you
township,
said,
removed most of the
chopped
trees
up
already.
from the linesman, or was half dead anyway, or was just a bad tree in a bad place, sort of a thing.
Right, right.
And so they were basically taking out everything, and then they brought us the plans, and they had looked at the trees and reviewed trees that were appropriate for columnar situations with the tight berm between the sidewalk and the street, or under the lines. There's a lot of
Right.
power lines
Yep.
going down there, and we wanted trees that didn't create a great deal of litter. We wanted trees that had
Right.
flowers. And we reviewed the list that they had proposed. We made some adjustments to it, and there was a design with the trees actually listed in it that we approved. And I don't know that we could offer any other advice than that. Where's that?
That
So-
plan, what, is that the same plan I sent to everybody? The CME designed it,
Yeah, CME did it. Yeah.
and that was
Yeah,
the plan.
So if this group, and that's where there was some confusion, and I thought you have reviewed those plans over time, but only getting involved fairly recently with the going ons of this organization here, your group. I didn't want to, I did not know, but I said that the expertise may be here and that you would look at the plan or would likely be willing to look at the plan and tell them whether or not yay or nay, or yeah, this is great, but oh, this thing here. So if you've already done that and are comfortable,
It did that.
just make sure it's the same plan, because there's been multiple plans over the years. But if you kind of signing off on that, I think then they're probably just looking for the trust fund money and for this group to, play whatever
We could
part in it
recommend
that you
the
want to.
township, we could recommend the township pay for the trees on the Hamilton Street corridor.
They
That
don't
would
need
be
our permission.
position to recommend. You guys have to approve it, but we can recommend, since we did review that plan, and if Sarah, you think it was the plan we approved?
I will, I don't want to say right here that it is the plan. Let me go back and dig my old plan out and
Okay.
compare them. It looked like the same plan, but let me compare it to confirm.
Okay. Can,
But the only caveat I have on all of that is, how much is that going to cost? What's the hit on our trust fund for planting all of Hamilton Street? And why wasn't that raised when they brought the plan to us originally? I thought there were other funds available for the trees. What happened to that?
some of the trees were planted by developers already. Because that's the pictures Bob presented to us, the ones that are beat up and in bad shape.
Well,
They
I
the right
did
trees?
the good, bad, and the ugly I put in there. I mean, there's some that have been there, and in front of the cafe Michelle's, I think it is, whatever.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, the good, bad, and the ugly. And man, I just have to shake my head from the amount of work that we put in this, and we thought that everything was going to be taken care of by the contractors or someone, wasn't going to be DPW, and that there was an actual plan to and how to mend the soil and do all that, which I believe is on the plans we just
Yeah,
got.
it's-
And then how disheartening it was when I went in there and took all those photos. What a waste of money. It really is a shame.
I know that we did not pay for some of those trees. The people who build the apartment complexes and other storefronts paid for the trees. I don't know if they followed the plans I don't know what plans the township approved for them.
That's the disconnect. And I believe me, now, it's not the time and the place, but the bottom line is there. I kind of used the word before. The process is in disarray. So what happens is there could be a site plan approval. It could be beautiful. Planning board did all their work. Public Works is ready to do whatever they're told to do. But somewhere along the line, nobody made sure that the developer was planning, say, and I'm just using one example, that some developer was supposed to plant these 8 trees, and it should have been referred to the plan we're talking about that was approved, you guys to sign off on it, blah, blah, blah. There's no process. So it's just been, and look, Hamilton's been through a lot the last 20 years, and
Yes.
it's finally, as they say, it's exploding in good way. It's got to be managed, and there's issues, but now is just the time. So I don't want to dwell on the past, but I think there should be some mechanism to where, and the board is fully supportive of you guys being somewhat of a check and balance, to where, or maybe somebody from this committee and somebody from the Hamilton board. That's all up to you guys. I just think that your skills and your mission goes hand in hand with what has got to be some kind of at least long-term, if not final, streetscape, and things don't keep on getting cut down by PSC&G or dying or a lack of consistency, because that's what they're looking to do, to have that street just look like a real main street. I know it's not Main Street Somerville, but the goal is to have the aesthetics be much better and consistent. So
Jim,
I
I
don't
think
know if that helps.
I think that's covered in my presentation where I presented and I asked the commission here, do you agree with the points that were on there? And if you go back and look at that, all the points that were made at the end, it was with no involvement by us, but it was to hire someone to come in and maintain those and to look at all that. As Sarah said, we did our part, we approved them, and whatever was to be as to who was going to plant them. As far as maintenance goes, we certainly aren't involved. When we proposed the question to Connor, he wasn't sure. So, there's another disconnect. But again, I believe the recommendations at the end of the presentation was there has to be a professional person to come in and take care of those trees and monitor those.
Well,
And that recommendation, I'm just using as an example, that's the kind of guidance that Hamilton is looking for,
Okay.
where
So-
how can this just move forward? And I don't want to put it on Connor, but Connor, is there, in your opinion, the comfort zone that within Public Works, because obviously I don't deal with all the employees, that there's the knowledge to be able to have, especially if we go with a big investment in 2022, to have those trees maintained in a really consistent fashion, like you'd want a Main Street streetscape to have. And I only mention that because I'd love things to be done in-house. We have great talent, but if there isn't, then maybe I don't know if you want to call it a consultant or a tree service.
Arborist.
Oh, well, yes, arborist. I'm sorry, you're right. That's actually, I was going to mention that before. An arborist should be contracted to be the buck stops with them type thing. We have that scattered around other aspects in town where it doesn't make sense to keep it under a particular person or department. But I don't know. I mean, I'm one person who would ultimately vote on approving that, but I don't know if those resources legitimately are in-house, whether in Public Works or elsewhere. And if they aren't, instead of, maybe that's the route to go. But if this group makes the recommendation, I think Hamilton's going to take it very serious and push to move forward, whether through the township budget, Hamilton's budget, or the trust fund, tree trust budget, to have the talent consistently there so this never happens again.
well,
That's my summary.
yeah, Jim, trees are going to die. There's other things that cause trees to die, and we will probably have to replace them. Connor knows that sometimes during the summertime, he doesn't have enough manpower to water the trees we have now every week, because you really need when you first start a tree out, you need to, especially in the summertime, you need to water it every week. And you're planting a lot of trees on Hamilton.
Yeah.
And that's going to take a lot of time. So
Resources.
that's the other thing to think about. That's what I was concerned about, because when I asked Vinny who was gonna take the care of the trees. He said Public Works, and I'm thinking Public Works is pretty taxed right now. How are we gonna take care of 100 more trees?
That's literally the biggest thing right now is that Public Works does not have the manpower. We don't. Where the Parks Department is 9 guys, maybe 10. I think it's 9. We don't even do our own grass cutting anymore. The road department does our grass cutting. Therefore, the road department, they're suffering now. All of their projects that they have, infrastructure, catch basins, whatever they got going on, paving. So that's all falling behind. And that's literally the biggest problem in Public Works right now is lack of manpower.
So
Is it-
Connor, there are, as far as I know, 2 full-time dedicated Department of Public Works just for parks. And there are 10 dedicated full-time Public Works people 10 months a year just for parks, open space and stuff like that.
He did say he has 9 guys on the Parks Department.
Okay, and I'm going to repeat myself.
Yeah, but that's right now he has 9. How many do you
And
have during the
what
summertime?
Chris, let me finish because this is what we were told at the last open space meeting. There are 2 full-time DPW people
The foreman,
for,
yes.
for parks and open space for maintenance of those lands. And there are 10 other people that are full-time 10 months a year. The first 2 are for 12 months a year. The other 10 are for 10 months a year. And those 12 people, is that your whole staff for DPW, or is that just for maintaining parks?
You're throwing me off with the 10 months and the 12 months. I know Parks Department, we have 9 guys full time. Road Department has probably another 9 or 10, and Water Department has probably anywhere between 12 and 13. I know total we have like 40 some guys.
So Jim, maybe you can clear this up for us, because this is what we were told at our last open space meeting, and we've told it before. And Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong. We were told that there are 2 people full-time just to maintain the parks, open spaces. And there are 10 other DPW people full-time 10 months a year just for the same purpose. Chris, do I have that right? Is that what we were told at the last meeting?
You are correct.
So I just wanted to know if we are correct about that. Jim, it sounds like Connor might be saying something different. So we need a clarification on that.
I don't. What Connor is saying is that the road department guys help them cut grass in the summertime. So
Yeah. So then that's just in the summertime because we also have garbage in all the parks. We have the trees.
Mhm.
We're also doing all the cleaning for the buildings, so there's potential to lose guys there.
Cleaning for what building? Cleaning for what buildings?
All the municipal buildings.
All right, are those considered parks buildings?
No, it's the municipal buildings.
So again, that should not count. And the what was the other people you talked about, Chris, or Connor, the
road department people
the
come
road department, are
Yeah.
those people considered DPW?
Yes. We're all
Okay.
DPW.
But again, I find a conflict in these numbers here when very specifically at our last open space meeting, we were told there were 2, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. There are 2 completely full-time people from DPW that are just for parks maintenance, and 10 other people that are full-time. Those first 2 were 12 months a year. There are 10 other people that are full-time for 10 months a year
I think
just for
corrected. I think they
parks.
said 9.
But
Pardon
can
me?
I,
Says nine.
instead of discussing the numbers in great detail, I think the bottom line question is, regardless of how many people are there, is it enough?
Yeah,
Is it enough for the maintenance of the trees that we are proposing, that Hamilton Street would like to have planted, as well as the maintenance of all the trees that have been planted in the parks that we've got on our monitoring lists that we paid for over the years, and the trees that we want to plant in the future, and not just planting and watering, but pruning, placing when needed,
yes.
and monitoring, and for people that are putting signs on them and taking the signs off and slapping them with a fine. Do we have enough people for that, regardless of what the counts are, anyone's been told, or doing things?
Connor just told us no.
Yeah,
There's not
Connor
enough
said
people.
no.
And so, Jim, are you planning to hire any more people in
Okay,
public?
so just a few quick clarity points. Sarah, I agree. We should move on with the important aspect that maybe we can make a recommendation, or you can make a recommendation on. But Arnie, the 10 of those two, either two things I'm thinking of where you keep mentioning those two, either there's summer help, or I know the open space, there's been a discussion as far as the open space trust fund paying for certain park maintenance. And at some point, there may have been where, well, that money will be used for two people year round to make sure, or two people for 2 months of the year. If that's come up in recent years, but there's a contribution, as some people may know, from the Open Space Trust Fund that helps fund
Park maintenance.
maintenance. Yeah.
Jim, I'm wearing my open space hat more right now than I am my shade tree hat,
Well-
because at the last meeting last week or the week before, I think it was last week, we were specifically told, doesn't have to do with summer help or anything. We were
Okay,
told,
okay. No, I believe you. I believe you. But just not to move it along, let me just say this. Just looking for my charger here. While let me say this, that when I was mentioning before about the direction, or about the skill set, what I meant was the knowledge. Be honest, I'm assuming, because I in general agree with what Connor's saying. I'm assuming there's no labor to take care of what I see as the needs of what could be 100, 200 trees to be well manicured, to be watered. I understand things die, but basically, that's a job in itself almost, or will become when it's finished. So I wasn't assuming Public Works would do it. Of course they can, and that's a decision by Bob Vornlocko and Carl Hauk. But I was just talking about the knowledge. But that was my second fact, that I think they're looking for guidance, because as great as our Public Works is, to take on something like that with all the projects that will be happening in 2022. And I don't want to get into the hiring because, and the structure, and if we're adding people, but I could say this, that we're seriously looking at the needs and the staffing, and to try to make sure we have the staffing to keep things at a standard that we want. I don't mean to be vague about it, but that is being looked at. But even if there is an increase in staffing in PW, I don't know if it would be logical to expect that this beautiful streetscape to be well maintained and manicured by them.
Jim,
I think
Did-
you're correct, Jim.
let me just jump in for a minute. Did they see my presentation? Did you give it to Vince or anybody else?
One moment.
while he's looking, Connor, who did you say cuts the grass?
The road department does in the summer.
Which is
No.
Public Works.
Yeah, we're all public works.
It's just you're divided into different departments.
Well, it's all Public Works, right?
Yes. So what I'm seeing reviewing Hamilton's tree plantings, I am not going to recommend we spend any money out of the trust fund until we know they're gonna be taken care of. And
That's
how,
kind of where I was, that's kind of where I was going with that.
Gentlemen,
Um,
if I can jump in here, at the end of the presentation that we agreed on, the last slide on there says recommend maintenance program by third party, all tree replacement species to be approved by STC, physical treatment, physical tree replacement by third party. Does that answer some of your questions?
yeah,
Robert, if I had that report in my hand, I would have presented it at the Hamilton meeting. But I did say,
I would love to make the presentation. Get me in there
I-
someday.
I did mention that this has been discussed and trees all over and Hamilton's come up. And I mean, I've been on Hamilton longer than anybody. And, you know,
I
I'm
can
glad
send you
that
just
things are,
that
I'm glad
slide
that
if
things
you
are
want.
happening. I'm glad that things are happening. But this is kind of important. It really is, because this is kind of turning the corner with the aesthetics and the consistency. And there's people have been waiting literally 40 years to see this on Hamilton.
Well-
So I agree with the report from what you just said, and I don't want to speak for this group, but you may want to, I mean, I can send it when I go to the next Hamilton meeting, but if you want to send it to Vince, and Vince, I thought was going to be here. That was the plan. Vince is very reliable. I don't know what happened. I think he would trust, you know, anything that I report or you report via your minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's an issue, because then they meet next month. They're looking to move this forward. So,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's unfortunate it's gone this far. I know I sent it to Carl and maybe I had copied you, maybe it didn't go through. I'm sorry, Carl, right? Yes. And hopefully it would have taken care of some of these issues already by just seeing that last slide in the recommendations. That's what we all agreed on at the end of the presentation, because I asked the group, how does this look? And everybody said, okay. So I think that's where we stand.
Can I
so
just-
go
Okay.
ahead. I'm sorry. Please,
well,
please.
let me just say this, guys.
Wow.
I wanna-
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna make a recommendation that the township doesn't use the tree trust fund to plant any trees on Hamilton Street until they should present a plan for maintaining them. How do you feel about that, Jim?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Ellen wanted to say something, so I
Yeah.
will respond to that. But please, Ellen.
Hamilton Street is not just, but it is an example of a showcase of what the township wants to feature, to look at with pride, when and the issues of the trees are important in this little jewel of a section that we want Hamilton Street to be. But with Bob's report on Hamilton Street, with the selection of the trees that I did a study on of JFK, what we know to be the case of the trees in Middle Bush Park and other places, there seems to be a lack of understanding of what it takes and what isn't happening now to maintain the trees. So while maybe a lot of money can be thrown at Hamilton Street, that's just one part of the whole landscape, for lack of a better term, of the tree situation in Franklin Township, and the lack of understanding or appreciation. And it's a big, maybe, hurdle to overcome for representatives on the council to understand. But our trees are hurting now all over, and what it takes really to maintain those trees is not appreciated, and easy to not feel or sense, because, well, they're scattered out in, behind a parking lot, and maybe that one dies and, well, another one takes its place, and they're just not right in your face. Whereas Hamilton Street is right in everybody's face, and we want it to be in everybody's face, but they're hurting all over the township. And I think that's the for me, I see as a missing link between not just, are we going to throw money at this, or can DPW do it, or do we want an arborist, but the real need to appreciate what it takes to maintain trees in general and to maintain them well, and not just think, oh, well, we'll throw another one in because, you know, we can get it for
Right.
$150 from Northern Nurseries or something. I mean, that's just what I wanted to say. It's not Hamilton Street only. It's
No.
it's all the
Um,
trees that we have.
Ellen, I agree with every single thing you just said. And I'm going to say this. I'm hoping, I didn't create this and move it in this direction because of this, but I'm hoping Hamilton will create a situation, a dialogue, an approach where money's being spent and maintenance and professionalism being demanded in a way, kind of as part of this process. And that approach and mindset could kind of be adapted and put into play on the JFK stretch, which we may be doing some things to in the future, you know, enhancing it. Other areas where trees play a significant role. The bottom line is, and I'm just being honest here, things understandably, whether it's within council or within department structures, you know, it's territorial. We all have our projects. We all have our priorities. You know, this has been on my mind and some of the things you've been saying and what I've been feeling, but at the same time, you know, I have to try and get, you know, some problem where there's drainage, where there's, you know, puddle of water 8 inches, where kids are waiting for their bus. And I mean, I guess there's a lot of other infrastructure things and a lot of other, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to say bigger fish to fry, but more urgent fish to fry. So this has kind of just not been attended to. I don't think it's been purposely avoided, but you know, public works simply, and I think Connor said it perfectly before, that, you know, they're stretched. And I think there may be some more staffing, but it's not going to be, in my opinion, the staffing, you know, to do what we're talking about here, because it's intricate and there's just so much else going on that PW is involved with. But I give you an example. You know, I watched for 8 months trees die in front of my eyes. Nobody's fault. Somewhere, I'm just not going to, I don't want to mention what, where, what. And, you know, to me, I had to bring it to the attention and push the issue to get it removed. And once PW got the order, not from me, but, you know, it was decided that it should be, they were on it and bingo, it was all done and taken care of. But there's not a systematic, and this
Right.
happened to be a park of public land. So we can't control everything with residences and businesses, you know, that the program and the tagging of the trees and that's actually made some improvements. But for the public lands, we should be in control. We have the resources, we make the decisions. And if we need a full-time arborist, if we need whatever it is, I'm not here advocating for an answer. I think Hamilton is looking for you guys to give them some guidance. And I think I hear the guidance, and it just needs to be formalized. You know, if Connor has any idea, or if anything I'm saying is, you know, off, please, you know, point it out or correct it. But you hit the nail on the head, and you probably said everything more eloquently than I can. But I think, Bob, what you were mentioning, where the in the report. So I don't want to make a recommendation or speak for this group, but if you want to summarize and make a recommendation that includes some of Ellen's concerns, which I think are everyone's, and about what you believe is necessary, and then support the full rollout. I don't know what the cost is, if you want to set a limit, but I know they want to take the ball and run with it. So you're in a position to help move this along and perhaps solve some of these lingering problems.
I
would
think
this-
what we assumed when we were involved initially, I don't, sorry if I'm rehashing this, that we worked with the consultants. Either monies were set aside already, that this project was going to continue, the money was out there and it was gonna go. And I can't put my fingers on it, but I can remember saying that we recommended someone maintain these trees for 2 years. Once they're established, they'll do pretty well. But the whole thing is getting them up and running. And I have to say that this Hamilton Street is probably an example of what not to do because it just fell apart. And now we're looking to spend lots of money in the materials and labor to replace these damaged and dying trees.
Okay,
But if you
I'm
can
gonna
be
take
an
the floor.
advocate and get me on to a presentation, I'd love to do this PowerPoint.
Okay, I'm gonna take the floor now. This committee would love to see a part-time arborist on the township, public works. I don't know if that's gonna happen. I doubt if it will because of cost. But I'm going to make a motion that we will not approve money coming out of Shade Tree Fund to plant trees on Hamilton without a maintenance plan. We need a
Hey,
maintenance plan.
Chris, I'm sorry, just to be clear, we don't have control over that. We don't say what
know,
can and can't come out of
But
the fund.
we do make recommendations, Sarah. And
So,
that's
so we can say that we don't recommend they use shade tree funds for this until such and such.
right. Exactly.
Sarah, hold that thought. Maybe later on we're going to be covering that because I wanted to look at the Article 20 in the Shade Tree Commission in the township codes that might address that.
Well,
As to how much say we
No,
have.
we don't have any authority over how the money.
we don't have any authority over the money. They can do whatever they want with the
Yeah.
Shade Tree
They
Fund.
could. Yep, they
I
can.
understand specifically about the funds, but there's other ways. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, but that's it.
Sorry, but after the money that's been spent, I would just verbalize my opinion when it was presented to Hamilton or the council, but a recommendation, especially one based on wanting it to work right and for money not to be wasted. I think, and I say this respectfully, this group, because this group has looked at the objective experts. I think it would be taken very, very serious.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would be conscious of the word maintenance. I'm not saying it has to be an arborist, but I think there's a 2-year span at the very least when you have major projects with trees like this, that you need a professional that's contracted and is going to be accountable at least for a given time period. And sometimes that's easier and more practical because then you're not hiring staff for something that may be, and again, not saying we may not have or shouldn't have more staff for PW for all the things that happen ongoing, but this may be temporary or really something that is more along the lines of a contractor consultant as opposed
Right.
to
Right.
a staff member.
The
So
word I used was third party, Jim.
So,
So I think
so-
that covers all.
third party.
So I have no problem with that. So it would have to be, if we hired somebody to plant these trees, it would have to be in the contract that they maintained them for 2
Right.
years.
I believe that was our initial recommendation too.
Yes, it was. So
Yep.
how are we gonna word this? We've got to, we should send a recommendation out to the township about these trees. So how do we want to word that, folks? I'm saying they present a maintenance plan to us prior to us recommending we spend $100,000 on trees. Is everybody with me on that?
Yeah, I'd have to say professional or third party who's drawing it up.
Well,
So present a maintenance plan that includes professional oversight,
Yeah.
yes.
certified, I don't know
Right.
that we can specify certified arborist, but that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, ISA certified arborist. Or New Jersey yeah.
That includes,
I think that'd be right.
I believe there are arborists on landscaping companies that would bid on this job. And so, it's, we can just do our recommendation, just like Sarah said, and then we'll move on from that.
And do we have any idea, has anyone thrown a number out as to what this is gonna cost?
Well, how
You're
many
an
trees?
arborist?
How many? No, I'm not worried about that. How many
For the
trees are we
trees.
talking about? You're talking about $300 a tree. Did anybody count how many trees they want to plant?
Yeah, I have to go back and look, I don't know. off the top of my
Let's,
head.
It's
let's
on the
just,
plan. I remember hearing something about 80, but I could be completely off. That could be one side of the road. And again, it doesn't have to be all done at one shot, but it's, obviously the cost is important, but we all know it's going to be substantial.
there's a total of 177 trees that have spaces. How many of those are planted? I don't know yet. And of
Well,
those that are planted, we don't know the condition of all of them.
How
At
many was
$400, at $400 a tree, that's $42,800. I don't
Let's
know
just,
how. I don't know how much they'll charge us. I mean, there's a lot of work involved. You gotta fix up the soil first before you plant a tree.
yeah, we're doing this over again.
Yeah, so it could be over $50,000 to get this done.
So we want them to present, our recommendation is that they present us with a planting and maintenance plan that includes ASA oversight before we recommend the township spends the shade tree funds for the purchase of these
Yeah.
trees.
Jim,
Yes.
if they're going to be screaming about money, and if they, excuse the term, cheaping out on this, we'll never achieve a tree cover. That's the problem. This
I
has to be
don't think anybody's
looked on as an investment.
I don't think
Absolutely an
anybody's
investment.
looking to try to do it cheaply.
Right.
And whether practicality of timing or cost, the bottom line is whether they did half of them or all of them, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't think you have to know the exact amount, but maybe reference, since it's going to be a large amount in the tens of thousands of dollars and a desired long-term aesthetic
Of course.
representation of Franklin, you want to make sure that there's a professional, third-party, responsible component that's going to be whatever contracted or hired as part of the planning process. I don't want to put words in people's mouth. This is what I'm kind of sensing,
Yeah.
and that you fully support this build out. That I'm going to call it a tree build out of the Hamilton Business District, as was referred to.
Yes.
If with that right criteria, because you want to be successful and because of the money involved. I mean,
Yes.
whatever way you guys want to word it, but I think it sounds like everybody's kind of on the same page. And I think everybody wants to put an end to it. So I don't feel that there's any going to be an adversary. Well, I don't know. Somebody always disagrees here or there, but I think again, I think you're going down the right path. And I don't know if Connor, you had any insights. I didn't want to jump over the fact that because it does involve maintenance, but does this sound feasible to you? Oh, you're muted.
The maintenance of the trees on Hamilton Street.
Yeah, in other words, we'll hire a contractor to take care of it. We'll hire a contractor to plant the trees and take care of the trees.
I think that's probably in the best interest.
I think it is also.
I'm not saying that the knowledge isn't at Public Works. I'm just saying that I don't feel that we have the manpower to take care of the amount of trees that you're talking about planting and maintaining and watering, so on and so forth. So yes, I think a third party contractor or arborist, whatever the group decides, would be best.
Okay. So made the motion. Was the motion seconded?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Chris made the motion to write this proposal. What is the motion?
Before the Shade Tree Commission would recommend spending money to buy trees for Hamilton Street, we would like to see a plan put together a maintenance plan for the trees put together.
Planting and maintenance plan, because planting is about amending the soils and creating the space
Right.
for first, which is going to be critical to their longevity.
So we're not proposing a, a planting and maintenance plan. We're asking the
We're
township
asking,
council
We
to,
want to be aware of it.
Our recommendation is dependent on them coming up with a plan for amending and maintaining the trees.
Who would maintain the trees?
The contractor who planted the trees would maintain the trees for 2 years. After 2 years, the trees should be okay by themselves.
Isn't there something, Jim, usually in a contract, maybe it's just for 1 year where they're required to, when they plant trees, that they're required to do that? And if any of them die, they are required to plant them?
Well, whenever you get a contract, you get a bond, the township holds a bond and some of the things play out over time. But I think this is kind of going a step further because it's not
Yes.
just about
Yeah.
guaranteeing the trees. It's about professional maintenance of it.
Okay.
And quickly, I don't know, were we all assuming that arborist cost, consultant cost would be also coming out of the trust?
No, it would be in other words, they're going to have to put this plan out for bid. It should be included
Got
in
it.
that bid.
Got it. Yeah. So it's really easy that way. You're saying, yes, do it. We support it. Here's the way it must be done.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
And it could be one clean swoop of an RFP and a bid going out, and they end up with the trees and the arborist in one shot.
Right. For at least 2 years, preferably 3 if we can get away with it.
And this is a little bit separate, but just maybe paint a little better picture. Hamilton has its own budget. And basically, the commercial properties have a vested interest in improving the town, improving everything about Hamilton. The township pays for some things. They don't spend much. But my point is, 2 years down the road, if this is successful, the board decides or recommends, the Hamilton board, the council, and ultimately council decides. But this is the kind of thing that board would probably pay for to some degree. The beauty, whether like they're buying those, Connor will probably find out when next year they're putting them up, or he probably already knows. They're buying new flags, like those spring, summer, fall flags you see. So this is part of the expenses, and they're not a lot. Once everything is put into place, it's not a lot, and that's what they call the SID budget, Special Investment District, to those commercial properties and residential complexes with more than 4 units. They chip in a few bucks a year besides their regular property tax to beautify and enhance and promote that strip of commerce and land. So I think if this thing goes the way that we're all hoping, that Hamilton will keep intact with the trees and the flowers and all of that, probably at the Hamilton budget. I don't want to promise that, but or maybe it's a joint effort. But this is the first step to finally getting this thing,
Beautiful.
whatever, where it should be.
Okay. So
Just one last thing, if I can, Jim, down the road, yeah, I think Chris touched on it. I know I'm an advocate for this. If we can somehow maybe, I don't know if we're on the same page exactly, but look for an arborist part-time. So if if we have an arborist for the town part-time or whatever, that can also be his cost, her cost could be spread over Hamilton Street. It would be even cheaper. And you'd have this person available, maintaining it, going through periodically, taking a look at the canopy, looking at the trees, and making recommendations and going from there.
Absolutely. It could be a joint effort if it's being utilized by different aspects, and I'm sure we'll come up with a way. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a big expense once, like I say, once we get down the road a couple of years. And
Again, it's an investment.
Okay,
oh, absolutely. I don't think people are against it. I think
Right.
it's just the kind of thing that falls through the cracks, and
Yep. It has.
and and they're looking to you. They're looking to the shade tree to kind of get the thing back into a cohesive plan, a tangible approach. So
okay.
anyway, sorry it took so long, but this really is turning a
No, this is
corner. I
great.
think.
Great.
Um,
This is the deepest dive we've ever had into this. Thanks.
Alan, we're gonna have to send a recommendation to the township. Can somebody put that together and send it to me, and then I'll send it to Bob Vornlacker and Councilman? Who should I send this to, Jim? To the whole council?
First and foremost, since Hamilton is the one that requested it, I would send it to
Vince?
Vince.
Okay,
And he'll distribute it accordingly.
I'll
And
copy you on that.
yes, please. And then it's a type of thing that will probably go to the finance department, the financial oversight, since they're working on tweaking out the budget. Or I'm on land use and public works. Those are two of my main areas as a councilman. And those would be the two council committees. They would be possibly vetted in or discussed for recommendation. So obviously, myself on there, and I think the other people would be supportive. Carl writes on one of those. So I would send it to the Hamilton, and you can send it to Bob, because he'll start shuffling it through the committees. Bob Vornlacker, that
Okay.
would make it happen in the budget.
Okay. So, Alan, can you put something together for me? 'Cause I am just terrible with the English.
I'm not the best wordsmith, but that's what I was trying to get clear on. Are we writing the recommendation for what we want to see in a bid?
No, we're not gonna. We're not gonna. We're recommending that they have a maintenance plan. We recommend it. We don't think they should. We think they should have a maintenance plan before we will approve funding. Before we'll not approve, but recommend funding out of the Shade Tree Fund.
Did we vote on this? I know there was a motion. Did we?
I made a motion. I heard somebody second.
I did.
All in favor of it?
Um,
Okay. So I see some hands, so I assume it passes. Okay. So
Helen, I'll help you submit that if you want.
I was going to just ask you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'll be happy. 'Cause I took some notes here.
I know, I know,
Grab some of the stuff, yeah.
I know I'm a worse wordsmith than anybody.
Yeah.
So you can send it to me and I'll send it to the appropriate people.
Just make
Okay.
sure that plan, just make sure that everybody is talking about that same plan that you're saying you thought was
Yeah.
right
and I'll
on.
do that
We're gonna
I'll do
verify that.
first,
Sarah,
yeah.
can you verify that plan and make sure it's the one we approved?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
And I would attach a copy of that plan with any recommendation or correspondence.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so that ends Hamilton Street review. Bob, you wanted to discuss something else?
Yeah, I just have a couple items and I'll try to skirt over them in relation to time here. Everybody got a list of some of the things I was thinking about, and one of them is goals for 2022. We did cover the webpage updates, redesign, landscape guidelines. We talked about that. One of the things I had is, we have to formulate plans now for tree sale 2023. Not looking necessarily to make a decision now, but this is something we can carry forward to the next meeting. And if you want to flesh that out, we can. I'd be happy, obviously, to contribute.
Okay.
Do you want
Hopefully,
to put it back on the agenda as a public information education event? For discussion?
can we in February? Can we discuss this in February? Is that enough? Well, we'll
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I'm just
Okay.
asking people to think about that, whether you want to go forward or not, and,
Okay.
discuss it then.
Thank you, Bob.
The next one was shade tree and DPW administrative needs. My thought here was, what do we assist DPW with administratively? What reports do we require from them on a regular basis? I know we've talked on that a little bit. That's something we can talk about next meeting, perhaps. I'm trying to get into the nitty gritty here, saying what do we require of each other, or what would we like to have as far as reporting? And when I say assist, is there CPU reporting that we have to do versus maybe DPW doing it directly?
I think we have to do that when we submit our become a tree city.
Okay. And are there other reports that we want to get on a regular basis? Do we have that defined? Do we, we said maybe quarterly, there's some, we certainly
No,
said the treasury on the monthly, the quarterly, is it the hazardous trees thing? Is there anything else?
no, we
Yeah,
don't
we
get
did
any
talk
reports
about
on
the
hazardous
hazardous tree
trees.
thing.
Sarah, I'm not hearing you. Can you say whatever?
I said it is an open item that we do want information from DPW on the hazardous trees. I know that we got some information, but we never discussed it again. We never discussssed what we received and whether it was adequate and what we wanted going forward. So that's
Yeah,
still.
I think we have to push this because we've been talking about this for a while. So,
Okay, so that could go under new business for next meeting?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Next one is Franklin Times. We talked about future deadlines. Article, what do we do? Who is STC?
We got that?
And then maybe I have another idea, but we can touch on that later on. Here's something I thought was interesting, that plantings, to use existing hazardous tree software to create a database for future and existing planting of trees. Correct me if I'm wrong, the hazardous tree software we have will, and I forget what the format is, but it obviously is GPS generated. So what I was thinking, that in the future, when trees go into the ground, we have a GPS location, we have the planting date, the tree common name and scientific name, soil condition type, maybe comments. Reason why I'm suggesting this is because due to our changing climate, we have to be aware of the type of trees we want to put in. And or will trees be stressed in the future? Also, too, God forbid we get another emerald ash borer type of attack. We have to know what type of trees, what our canopy looks like, if we can. This way we can prepare to advise the town and DPW, and they can make estimates of costs for removal.
I'd like to be polite, but can all this wait until February?
I can write this down and send it. Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate
Um,
that.
Let me just jump ahead. Two more things I'll go over real fast. Next time, all right, I'll put this for next time. Arborist part-time, really, really, really want to explore that for next time. I think we've come to a point that we really need to have some guidance on the type of trees that we put in. Again, looking towards the future and longevity.
Okay.
That's it. Unless you want to go to dendrology, I know we're kind of late. We can push that to February as well.
Yes. Okay, folks. Do I
That's
hear a
it.
motion to close the meeting?
No, Chris, I brought something up during the minutes and I was told that we pushed back till the end of the meeting and there was another,
What are we
we were
talking
gonna-
about, Arnie?
pardon me?
What do you want to talk about?
So this was talking about, we were talking about the tree list to be used, the current tree list that is supposed to be used by the township when they're planting trees.
Right.
We've been working on that for years and nothing has got done. So my suggestion is that we make a recommendation that the township, the council, put out an RFP to hire a consultant, find out how much it's going, see what bids are, see if is it going to cost $5,000, is it going to cost 20,000, whatever it's going to cost. If it's a ridiculous amount, we don't do it. But we get a consultant to prepare the list of trees for Franklin Township. They update the list of trees that we have, because obviously over the many years, it hasn't been done by us. So what about getting a professional to do it?
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to give me 1 month to look at the list and see if I can come up with a new list. Cause I will look at the list in the next month and if I don't do anything, then we will ask for that.
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
I'd like to make a comment on that because there's also the content and the way that's all set up. Now, we can look at trees, but how about the wording of that? Is that still appropriate?
we,
That's why if we have a professional come in, they will know the latest uh, ways that a lot of these are constructed.
And this
I-
is the landscape guidelines again?
yes,
Yeah,
this is
right.
this is the
Planting
As we
landscape
talk
guidelines.
about parking lots, we talk about other things. I think there's a lot more knowledge out there than what we have that we can have a consultant look at.
And again, when it comes to who's gonna pay for that, this was the
Well,
Environmental
that would come out of the
Commission's
shade.
document and not the Shade Tree Commission's full
Pardon
document. It
me,
was
Sarah?
partly ours, it was partly ours in terms of the trees, but that document was from the Environmental Commission and encompasses other things. And so I don't think the Shade Tree Commission should pay for a full redo of that document, but we can certainly create, I would recommend that we could create a document that just represents the tree side of that and then let somebody else deal with the other parts.
Yeah, I'm absolutely, I agree, Sarah. I'm
Right.
100% in line with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, the environmental commission has no money to spend on it. We don't have a trust fund or anything. So I'm just talking about the tree
rolling in it.
issue.
Okay,
That's
folks,
it.
I haven't eaten dinner. I really want to bring this meeting to an end so I can go eat.
Chris,
Eat
I
dinner
just want
next
to say,
time, please.
Chris, I
What?
just want to say one thing with you and what you and Arnie, you and could look it over and whatever you guys could do to improve it, that list. But is there a reason that task couldn't just be assigned to whoever may be, and it's a maybe, but whoever may be hired to be the professional person for the Hamilton concerns? Why couldn't it be the same arborist that
Yeah,
does?
you could include.
Yeah,
it in
the two
the
separate
contract.
projects.
You could include.
Yeah,
it in
but
the contract.
the money, it's not like Hamilton is going out to bid to pay for trees. They're asking this group. So your recommendation, I'm just trying to keep it simple and consolidated, that it seems like it would be the same person and you'd want someone to be familiar with Franklin that may be a kind of consultant where needed for trees and issues of an arborist's knowledge.
The person that's dealing with Hamilton is dealing with Hamilton. We're talking about all of
necessarily.
Franklin Township.
But isn't the skill set the same, that it could evolve into
Yeah.
I
other?
think,
Yeah.
yes, I agree, but the person for Hamilton is just being hired for Hamilton, correct?
Well, it depends on how you write up the recommendation. If you write the recommendation that they are on the staff of the firm that plants and maintains the trees for 2
Right,
years, then we would have no other work with them. But a lot of municipalities across the state have arborists on call, they're contractors or they're consultants, they're ASA certified, and they consult on all kinds of tree issues throughout
Right.
the year, and they're on either a retainer or some other basis with the municipality. And I do think that that's what this town needs.
Now,
I think that's
State-
hopefully what we're gonna get to. And yeah, that, I don't know how that gets paid for. I guess it could get paid for out of the shade tree fund. We'd have to make sure about that, but I mean, we as a commission are supposed to have an arborist on the commission.
Right.
Or a landscape architect or an arborist or someone in the tree business, and we have not got that. We certainly have it in terms of passion and some knowledge, but not certified. And in lacking that, I think, and we have put out the call for them. We've asked people to join us, but they get paid to do this. They're not going to come sit on a commission. So I think that's where we're going to have to go if the township wants that kind of expertise, is to hire it.
I mean, if this is going to get rolled in, my suggestion, if that's going to get rolled into Hamilton Street for one person to do, or one group to do this whole thing, that's fine. But I can just see this whole thing with the trees, rewriting of our trees, the list of trees, I can just see that falling to the wayside because they're focusing on Hamilton Street. But again, it all depends on how this request or RFP, or however you want to word it, is going to be written for Hamilton Street. It's got to be broader than Hamilton Street.
Okay, folks, I asked for 1 month to look at it before we do this. That's all I'm asking. I'm going to
Sorry,
leave.
Chris.
I'm going to go eat my dinner. So
Do you want me to send you all the work that I did on it previously? And
Yes.
that I know Bob did, and
these two.
was it Mary?
Chris, can we send food to you next time before the meeting?
My wife went shopping and came back at 7 o'clock. Dinner was supposed to be done
terrible.
before that.
I-
Yes.
I'm
I was-
sorry,
Chris.
Chris.
I'm going to have my dinner now. Bye, everyone.
We have to officially first, second adjourn. Did somebody do that?
Well,
I recommend that nobody first and second it because I want to watch Chris wither away.
Chris has a long way to go before he can wither away.
So Arnie proposed, right?
I'll
Close the meeting?
second. I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
I
Bye.
Okay. Good night, Pete.
It's good to see everybody. Take